Criminal law operates on a basic rule. You cannot be punished for your thoughts. Merely intending to commit a crime, no matter how malicious, does not violate the law. To trigger legal liability, an offender has to take a physical step. They have to strike the match, pull the trigger, or break the window. This is the standard legal equation: mens rea, or the guilty mind, combined with actus reus, the guilty act, equals criminal liability. This creates a dangerous loophole. How does the state prosecute an organized syndicate if law enforcement steps in before the physical crime ever occurs? To close this gap, the legal system relies on the concept of the inchoate offense. An inchoate offense is a crime of preparing for or seeking to commit another crime. Under Section 61 of the Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita, or BNS, the updated Indian Criminal Code that replaced IPC Section 120A, the law makes a specific exception. It treats the agreement itself as the guilty act. By criminalizing the planning phase, the state removes the need to wait for physical harm. This gives law enforcement the authority to intervene and dismantle coordinated threats before they materialize. To prove criminal conspiracy under Section 61, the prosecution must establish 4 ingredients: an agreement, plurality, a common object, and shared knowledge. Plurality means at least 2 individuals. If all but one are acquitted, the conspiracy charge against the remaining individual automatically collapses. The central pillar is the agreement, known in legal terms as consensus ad idem, which means a meeting of the minds. The Supreme Court of India clarified exactly how this agreement forms in the Kehar Singh judgment regarding the assassination of Prime Minister Indira Gandhi. The court ruled that the exact moment 2 or more minds meet for an illegal purpose, the offense is legally complete. Conspirators rarely draft signed contracts. The agreement can be entirely tacit or implied. Because illegal agreements are made in secret, the court set an evidentiary standard in the case of Muhammad Khalid versus State of West Bengal. Direct proof of the conversation is not required. The agreement can be inferred entirely from the circumstantial evidence and the coordinated conduct of the accused. This brings us to the knowledge requirement, a standard heavily tested during the trials surrounding the assassination of former Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi. In State of Tamil Nadu versus Nalini, the Supreme Court determined a single conspirator does not need to know every detail of the overarching plot. This network diagram illustrates how a massive conspiracy functions. An isolated spoke might only interact with the central hub. They might never meet the other spokes or know exactly how the entire operation operates. Because conspiracy is a collective crime, partial knowledge is legally sufficient. As long as that peripheral actor knows they are participating in a broader illegal design, they share the liability for the entire network's objective. The law recognizes that not all agreements carry the same level of immediate danger. BNS Section 61, subsection 1, includes a critical proviso that separates conspiracies into 2 distinct legal tracks. The dividing line is the presence of an overt act. An overt act is a practical, physical step taken to push the plan forward. Looking at this matrix, the first track applies when the objective of the conspiracy is to commit a recognized criminal offense. In these cases, the law requires no overt act. If 2 people agree to poison someone, the crime is finalized that exact second. The second track applies when the goal is legal, but the methods are illegal. Here, the law demands an overt act. Consider a scenario where executives agree to ruin a competitor's legal business by using criminal defamation. Outcompeting a rival is a legal goal, but defamation is an illegal method. In this business scenario, mere discussion does not violate Section 61. At least one party must take a physical step toward publishing that defamation in order to trigger criminal liability under the law. The statute isolates severe, inherently dangerous plans, like murder, and prosecutes them at the moment of agreement. But for non-criminal objectives, it mandates an overt act. This ensures the state targets genuine threats rather than punishing casual conversations. In legal practice, criminal conspiracy is frequently confused with a related concept, abetment. Understanding the difference dictates how charges are framed. Abetment by conspiracy is defined under BNS Section 45, which replaces the old IPC Section 107. In this comparison, abetment is an auxiliary offense. Liability is derived entirely from the principal crime actually happening. Conspiracy under Section 61 operates differently. It is a substantive offense. A substantive offense is an independent crime with its own prescribed punishment. The liability exists regardless of whether the planned outcome is ever achieved. In a courtroom, this distinction dictates the verdict. If a group plans a major crime but fails to execute it, an abetment charge might result in an acquittal because the main crime never happened. But under Section 61, that same failed plan can yield a maximum sentence. Section 61 is a specialized, proactive tool. It is designed specifically to punish the planning phase of a criminal enterprise, completely independent of the execution phase. The mechanisms of conspiracy law are heavily utilized to dismantle civilian criminal networks, but they are equally applicable to the state apparatus itself. BNS Section 238 states that anyone who knows a crime has occurred but deliberately conceals evidence or provides false information to shield the offender commits a punishable offense. When an investigating police officer ignores vital evidence linking a suspect to a crime or falsifies a scene report to protect someone, they cross a legal boundary. They transition from an investigator to an offender. If that officer acts alone, they face standard penalties. But if they coordinate with others, the state applies a compounding multiplier, BNS Section 61, subsection 2. Mapping this out, when evidence tampering is executed in collusion with the accused, the officer joins a criminal conspiracy to obstruct justice. The punishment tiering under Section 61, subsection 2, mirrors the gravity of the underlying crime. If the underlying crime carries the death penalty or life imprisonment, such as a murder investigation, the conspiring officer is punished exactly as if they had abetted the murder themselves. In this scenario, the legal protection of the police badge is completely pierced by the consensus ad idem, the agreement to protect the criminal. This strict liability highlights the critical need for transparency and ethical standards within law enforcement. Investigators must operate without colluding with suspects to avoid falling into these compounding statutory traps. The law of criminal conspiracy acts as the ultimate equalizer. It is structured to dismantle organized threats at their inception, whether those threats originate from underground syndicates or from corrupt elements within the state apparatus itself.